Thanks so much for joining us here at MeWe Fairs, your safe space for authenticity and transformation. We have events throughout the Pacific Northwest, many online, and we interview our practitioners and vendors so you get to know who we are before you meet us at an event. I'm excited to be here today with Michelle G. Michelle, it's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So tell us, Michelle, what do you do?
I would like to say I communicate with so many beautiful beings and forms of consciousness, physical and non, and allow their energies to come through. I would call myself a conscious channel, and I allow that information to come through the best way it needs to come through, depending on what I'm doing or who I'm working with. And when I first got to work with them, so I was doing it by myself, I found that it came through in what's commonly called light language, and it comes through in vocal, sound, speech, song, hand movement. It started with the hand movement. It looks like sign language, and dance, and then it progressed into what's called like light language on paper, like writing, and then I started asking if they wanted to draw, and they started drawing, and even though I couldn't interpret it, or I wasn't getting the other clairs, I wasn't hearing it or getting um, imagery about what it was about, I was getting a clear channel of what to do, and I knew when I was doing something wrong. That was always interesting. I could always tell, oh, that was a wrong note, that was a wrong sound, or that's a wrong mark, so. And then I started working with other practitioners, to get feedback, to find out, what am I doing, what does it feel like to you, and to get the feedback so I could know myself. And I've done that for a few years now, and now I have a much better understanding. And just like people and animals, they all have different personalities and different art styles, and it's a great deal of fun. I have an absolutely amazing, beautiful, loving star family, that I'm a part of as well, and I love sharing them with other people and helping them, if anything, get to know their star family and their guides and support team.
I have like a few questions that are just bubbling now from hearing you. One had never occurred to me before. So, with the different beings, they have different styles, just like humans might have different styles of artwork. So, there's a style of transmission and a style of drawing, for example, that for the different beings that you connect with. So, that's one way that, like, I know you can tell who you're connecting with, but that's another way we can tell from
Sometimes.
experiencing it. Okay, sometimes you know. So, there's like
Yes.
one being doesn't do lots of different styles, there tends to be a style.
Yes, to all they so specific beings, especially ones like either, like, sometimes I'll work with somebody, how it started was people said, "Oh, I see so and so with you." Whether it's somebody we know, like Archangel Uriel is with me, Melchizedek is supports me. And then as people introduce me to guides, then I learned I could communicate, and I said, "Well, hello, Kuan Yin, would you please talk out my mouth so I see what you can sound like?" And when you do that to three different beings and they all sound completely different and feel different, then you're like, "Oh, well, that's very, very interesting." And then you move to, Q, one of my guides. I'm like, would you please, you feel like drawing for me, please? And then they started drawing. So Kuan Yin is a very abstract style. Um, and Shawan Gay has a very, also abstract, but in a different, like these abstract landscapes that lean toward Asian landscape with some structures and some mountains, and so they all have different artistic styles. They sound completely different. Their mood, people are, I like giving people analogies, because they want to translate this into English to make it, I don't know, make sense. And I said, do you have dogs or cats? Have you had more than one pet? And then, 90% of the people are like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, "Do they speak English to you?" And they're like, "Oh." And I'm like, "Can you tell them apart? Can you tell what they're trying to their message they're trying to get across, or their emotions, or if they feel bad. Can you tell their fondness for you and their love for you? And, when you think of it that way, like if you had three different dogs, there's no question. They're all very different. They sound different. They act different, and they don't speak English, but we communicate with them just fine. Humans are the ones that need language. So per se.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, let's see. So I know that when I've interacted with you before, there's been like I've just been open to like whatever messages want to come through for me. Do you sometimes get specific questions from people, or do you just look to see whatever, like whatever guys, whatever beings want to show up and share something? Like, how does it work when you work with someone?
D, all the above. So some of them have an intention. Some of them just say, I've learned myself when I work with people, I'm like, I defer. What do they have to say? Uh, and the energy comes through differently. I just encourage people to not try to say, oh, that sounds Japanese. How do what does it sound like if it comes through in language and if I'm speaking for them? and I just ask them, whatever their request is, whether it's healing, whether it's information, whether it's my hip hurts, whatever it needs to be. Or in some cases, I've had a few successful cases where they needed integration, like they had a new guide or something like that. And the energy, there was a disparity in the energy. So, we could kind of make that work and match up together. Um, so let's see, I got a little lost in where we're at here. It comes through, sometimes it comes through in song. Sometimes it comes through what more sounds like speech. But in that sound that's coming out of my mouth that might sound like a language, the recipient gets it in a variety of different ways. And that was a big learning thing why I worked with so many people that could give me feedback. Because some people, they just start crying, they get a release, they feel warm, they feel my grandma just hugged me. Some people are like, oh, I'm seeing pictures of the mountains. It looks like
Oh,
a mountain I'm familiar with, or there's water, and they'll see imagery. And then some people, they, well, not direct translation. I've had people that say, um, oh, that's my aunt who's passed, who she's giving me encouragement to be confident and, don't be afraid or whatever. So it comes through in many, many, many ways. Some see in
and
great detail
and,
and some
and that's where
don't.
the person's aunt is communicating through you. So sort of mediumship.
I
I mean, it's
guess
all a form of
you could call
mediumship,
it
channeling,
that.
but yeah, and if
Yeah.
it's someone's relative that's sharing.
Because that's the energy they feel. I guess that it's somehow it's familiar to them.
Okay.
I don't see this energy. I don't see the message they're getting, and I don't hear what they're getting, and I don't usually feel what they're getting. The funny thing is, there's a beauty to not being privy to some of the information, because I've had more than one person that I'm working with is very happy that it's private, because I tell people, I'm like, you can set your intention out loud or in your head. And I also tell people, I'm like, I'm not going to drive what's being said here. Your guides are here, my guides are here. Whatever you need and whatever your intention that you want today, I'm going to let whoever needs to come forward, which is often your guides, because I find that's mostly works better if your guides are coming through, because likely you're more familiar with that energy.
Mhm.
When I used to try to control it and say, I'm going to work with Sananda today and I'm going to ask Sananda to speak to you, and it didn't quite jive. And I'm like, and then my logical brain says, why am I limiting it to that? If their guides are here, why don't I let their guides talk? Because there's a better chance they're going to understand them. So I started doing that a while back. I just defer to who needs to. If we need the electrician comes through. If we need the angel comes through. So I'm like, here's the person we're helping today. This is what they need. I'm the microphone and the PA system. Whoever needs to come forward that can serve best, come through. And so
Great. Well, I want to transition to getting a demonstration, and then let's talk about some of the imagery and the things that are coming through. So, if there's something that they want to share here to have on the video, whoever wants to share, let's do that.
You said imagery or speech?
Let's do yeah, language and movement if you want to move and whatever they're wanting to share, and then let's look at imagery afterwards. You know,
Uh,
and instead, if drawing comes up for you right now, go ahead and do that. Like whatever wants to
oh
come
no,
through.
they're always here.
Mhm.
There's always a crowd. So I've actually asked Swisha, who is my Pleiadian sister, who is actually another I've been told is another aspect of me, and and I've asked her to be my crowd control because it's like being at a microphone and everybody's fighting to get to the microphone. So if they don't come out right away, that sometimes means that there's like they're fighting over the microphone. So I'll kind of like say, look, y'all chill. Somebody step forward and be nice. And on occasion, if whoever needs to come through is a little bit different of a frequency, perhaps a higher frequency that I haven't worked with, it takes me a few minutes of breathing to get them to come in, and I can like tune into a new radio station and program the channel, and then they can come through. And they also change out during, like somebody will speak, and then I'll take a breath, and then somebody else will speak, and I'll take a breath. So I'm guessing that's going to be what happens here
That's what I'm
today.
thinking. Yeah, we got some different
Yeah,
demonstrations, different themes,
but
share
yeah,
messages.
they're
Yeah.
always here. And if there's just the intention of saying hello, if that's what you're asking for, we can certainly ask him to do that. And then there's going to be a few come in. I will say, I don't translate them yet. I really so just
All
if
right.
yeah, just encourage people to feel it and experience it. And again, think of it like meeting new pets. They all have different.
And I mentioned to you, you've connected with some colleagues that translate now too, so you're starting to do that also. But
I
yeah, we're
do.
just gonna.
I do a little
I'm
bit of
not, so we're
yes.
gonna have
Yeah,
whatever comes
we're
through.
gonna have fun. It's still fun because there's such a variety, some and so let's see if we can get a little variety today. I'm just gonna back up because when I talk my hands move, so you'll see the sign at the same time. So who's first? Who's first? Who's first? Chiave con darki, shoame na ki, kurka na ne wachari, tote cantarki manjawari, kurko panyinga nera, ronva e shi, tane ko wane e shi mamarakane e chira, turki nyara na tegara wetana achi, hurki tatakmanche. So we're switching, and I'm asking for a variety to come through so you can hear the difference in the variety. So I think Sal's going to come through here. Tuột cái chăm đào cũng biết chứ chứ trùng đều đã cao trồng kiểu đào đi cái chứ có tao này nè na cái quá hết chú cổ ra nè cha what. Let's see, who do we want? Let me see if I can get. I'm going to ask Mother Mary to come through because she has the most. Her and Kuan Yin both, either one, they have the most beautiful, calming energy. Probably should have done that first because Sal's so funny and high energy. Shatashi. So this is me switching and changing frequency. Moshe. Nane echa. Goshi katama nawe hane. Eno eshi tona na mane heko ane nawe. Mona asheta na keka. Echa wetane ewa echa. Esha na anewa ekane wehita. Burki wachena naweka. Eshu kitane awe. Ona e mare kuti shina e watikicha. Wane ehe totai wane achane. We greet you, we greet you, we greet you with love. Kuta. There's an endless stream. You just tell me when to go and stop.
Go ahead, you can do a few more. You want?
Let's see. Let's get Q in here. He's one of my regulars, and he has a completely different personality. And I'm backing up because he's loud. Shangabarki no ha, shiro gona marageshko, bargi durangi gabosh, kanige dorgi wadagachi, una madage ahwe an iguro kande, goroganje gaba, rusha, menohuchita raganande, gorgi wane ehe, nur ki chaparge do wanga anshinga runana, Kishko wanana e wa krona da e gara gaba de gaja eno wa shino gagare gogashki morga dare gawa ishka ero wandade goshka yahati torka. By the way, Q loves to dance, rap. He loves Shaggy and Pitbull. And once I was introduced to him and started dancing, I'm like, oh my God, you were with me back when I used to go disco dancing all the time. And I realized that because it was the same. Yes, so much fun. They're a hoot.
Anyone else or whatever feels like.
Would it be beneficial? So everybody's familiar with Mother Mary and probably Kuan Yin. Um, would it be beneficial to call in either a specific species, or is my higher self speaking, a specific species or a individual like one of the archangels? Would that be useful? Would you prefer today?
I just want a variety that people can get a sense of who's available. Even just you're speaking to that these are some of the beings that come. It's helpful,
Everybody
like you
is
just did.
available. Everybody is always available. It is more that you open yourselves to the concepts and to the ideas that the infinite is available and we are all connected. So let us step aside and see who else wishes to come through and speak today. Let's see, variety. Who wishes to speak? I know, we will inquire with Jundada, who is the Arcturian High Council, because their speech has a very unique cadence. Shushanat. Kenadogaki, Shodomanagash, Girudobara, Shigodomara, Kunikaragish, Onemaragaka, Shenomarageko, Baregaradashki, Boregaradashka, Doregaraba, Kunigaradish, Kurigaraba, Tinegedodosh, Koregarabin, Kurigarata, Shoregaragish, Baregaredosh, Garedare Banke, Urekanatanche, Turka Yara, Doshka, Bedokeshka, De Waro, Menahe, Shurotante. Greetings. We can go Andromedan, we can go Pleiadian, we can go Lyran.
Maybe let's do one more. Maybe let's see. And
You pick. Who would you like to
oh,
speak to? Which ray, which species?
I don't, I, I'm tingling, but I don't know myself what, how do I feel like someone has an important message that needs to be shared. As long as it is short enough, I want that message to be shared.
We can do so. Gladly do so. We will step forward. Yes. Shamena ne echa, turki mana, ewa he tana atanka, eno washi tiketana ne mane, one hiki share delga dade, one erampa, one gaye, arki chico ananane, tuman e he kana a ewa hecha, ena e karicha, ena hika waega da, shina awe achita. Eno hinane eka, meno hukoweta, mena awea, aniti, wanehe shikane, ana awe sha atika, eno wahe, eshichi chukatane nama, meno orki kawa, mone esha wahe nanachi, kana ewaye kayanane, oshitane, no shiwa, ekane, kai etisha. Awe Ata. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mina awe isha tega.
And I want to ask, is there any, before we start looking at the different drawings of things that have come through you, do you want to have one come through where you're drawing as it comes through? Just an option if
Sure.
you want that.
We can do that. And you can see how the writing works because
Yeah.
when I do writing, which I do sometimes for artwork, and I do it sometimes to translate intention into paper. which I can do and translate the frequency into the paper so it can be reused, so to speak, or passed on to somebody else. But I often speak when I write.
I didn't remember what we did before. Are you just tipping this camera or is it a different
Mm,
camera you switch to? Okay, yeah.
I just
So
tip the
maybe we can
camera.
see it as you draw.
Yes, and I did ask them for expediency in today's meeting. I'm like, pick your colors first, folks, because they're very particular about colors. So I'm like, well, you guys need to pick them first. Uh, I treat them as family. They're always here,
Great.
but they are picky about color. All right, so we're just going to take this and we're going to drop it right here. And I think we're just going to say hello here and start with blue. Share. Contataiwa echane achawa ane wisha ane te kurka waya. Oh, fix that mark. Gargi waya hane echi ana ate wahe nani a chakate roto shane mare wante ikha nena esha wana a pushte. Wane e kurkia, wane e wa chichi rane shikana e chawe ka. Bergo aye wane a chana esha wana e. Kushke, orange. I picked up the red one. They're like, no, we want the orange one. Shune e karen dodishka nana wisha tama ane wa he. Kuna a. Shewa atane ewa ante oshe wana e wahe wanta e kurki wana e chuchu wahe bare gukana e wa ane e shana shikatawe ana aye switch colors shurka Baikana ewe ana ane wahe shia ana ishikuta wai a e konana e chana. Mena o shukura bane wa e hana e shi ka e a eta. Wina ashe burkita mboshkita wa. That's running out ink on that kind. Sheno wahena e tu ka we. Pino osha wahe oshki kana ma te waro ba ke wahe bona shishara etaye wane they tell me like if I make a wrong mark shinoka e wahe chuna awa chukera manehe Panewaha eti wisho wane vodka wane marke wane. Oh, that wasn't quite right. Chukanana wane esho dana gota emane e and one. We got the red last. Borka baje bantante Wesho, Kishka, Wahe, Omana Ewa, Inka, Oti, Wahe, Tosh, Beto, Wanehe, Guta, Esha, Manehahe, Wata, Osho, Oche, Mate, Gorka, Wahe, Achuki, Ashe, Bahe, Wane, Dushka, Yata, Shino, Beho. This is like a flow symbol, like the flow through life. It's more of a snake, but this is like an abbreviated version. Beshukata, Kiwahe, Oshata. And one more. We're going to miss a black dot somewhere. Where is the black dot that was made? We got Bahenana Kiroto Shawaena Echi Ba Bahewa Wrap it up, boys. Ga de wa na gosh bane wehote mane e. Okay. So,
Great. Great. All right.
so you can see they're very specific, but I will tell them, I'm like, hurry it up, kids.
Well, thank you for the demonstration. Maybe, and I've got just about 8 minutes left. So maybe show us some of the other things that you've drawn. Maybe tell us a little bit of the stories behind them, the brief things. Yeah.
So I learned that I could send, just as you could send an intention with the energy to somebody to facilitate whatever needs to happen. I learned that I can, and this is with feedback. When I say I learned, I try something and then I go to people, intuitives, and get feedback. And when I get enough consistent feedback, I consider that acceptable data. So like these, these all have, you have grounding, letting go, awaken, charity, peace, I am. So with that intention, I write the intention on the back and then I draw. So here's, and then so I can transfer the information, the energy frequency of the intention into the drawings. So these are some examples. So I've made some oracle cards and I've even made things to represent, compounds and things like that. And by the same token, if I am ill, I will sit in the morning and say, I will make drawings like every day. And sometimes throughout the day, they'll do it in the morning. It's almost like 3 times a day pills or something. You do it in the morning and then they'll go like, okay, we need to add to it. And at nighttime, we're going to add to it a little bit more. So it builds up over the course of either hours or days. So these are some times that I was healing myself.
And so these are energy transmissions that other people could potentially get through the images too, or I wonder for you, is some of the the medicine impact, the drawing of it yourself, just for yourself too.
Yes,
Yeah,
D.
so both, all these things, right? D, all the above. Okay, great. And then you started, I think you said you started drawing recently. You've asked some of the beings to show themselves, or
Well, initially I started just drawing, and initially I started just who wants to draw, and then I would be prompted to draw. So Ann Tucker, who some people might be familiar with as a channeled mother of creation. The next morning I got a tap on the shoulder saying we want to draw, and this was the image that came out. And while I don't usually feel during this, when I did it, I was crying because the love that came through was amazing. Q, who you all heard today, I said, hey, will you draw yourself, buddy? And they chose to draw kind of a physical representation of when they were here on the planet. And this is what Q draw, who was kind enough to put a big Q up here, so I didn't have to wonder who was drawing. A long time ago, when random consciousness would come through to draw, they started signing their name. Now, Sylvan often signs his name backwards. Sylvan, I came later when I went to an intuitive and they said, I see a diminutive, what looks like an ET behind you. And I was trying to figure out who it was. And all of a sudden I was like, is that Sylvan? And I got a yes. So then I was so excited, and I'll show you Sylvan present. I'll show you that in a minute. So these are drawings that come through. This was one by somebody that identified themselves either as ill or non or the other way around. I thought it was very interesting to find this broken rope, like it was anchored and then it broke free. I work with Sananda a lot, and Sananda always puts a nice large S. And I did get a title for this in my head, and that was this. And first, it was this one that says, I was once an angry man. And then next came this one that says, enlightened man. And there's a lot of imagery in there. And I did take this one and actually feed it into AI, and I was very impressed to see that they pick up a pine cone, the pineal gland, the bird, which can be a messenger, the energy, and it was really fascinating. They saw way more than I did. Archangel Uriel, I said, hey, Bubba, I know you're not corporeal, but could you do your best? And I got this gorgeous representation of this interdimensional being that's everywhere. and I was very appreciative of that. Then to what you were leading to is because I don't see, and one of the beautiful intuitives that I met on MeWe fairs said, well, at some point you decided you weren't ready to see, to have somebody in front of your face at 2 in the morning, but you don't need to see because you can draw anything that you need to see. So I said, huh. I said, so I started with, I was introduced a long time ago to a small Thai woman that was with me, a spirit that was with me. So I call her Mama Thai. She has a very amazingly strong energy and very colorful. And I said, Mama Thai, will you draw yourself? And first, I got a traditional drawing, which is like this, which is more energetic. And then I said again, my logical brain said, thank you for that. Would you please draw a physical representation of yourself when you were on the planet? And then I got this instead. And this is Swisha, my Pleiadian sister I was introduced to, my bouncer, my crowd control. And so a lot of times when I see these marks that look like starry, that's how I kind of see these are interstellar beings, or perhaps beings that can be corporeal and non-corporeal. And we'll just go through. So here's an example of like an interstellar being, these kind of energy, but they give you like a slight representation of a facial structure. And then I had some what felt like youth tapping me on the shoulder saying, we draw, we draw, we draw. And these are the Tuitu, I think is what they're called. And this is a youthful version of themselves. And they're lovely. And this is Sylvan. So I finally said, hey, buddy, will you give me a physical representation of yourself? And this is my beautiful friend, Sylvan, who has a beautiful, peaceful energy and is with me and helps me and guides me. And then this was an interesting one I'll stop with. So I was introduced by an intuitive that said one of my guides is here to work with you, and he's kind of heading the guides right now to help you on your road to, with your spiritual path. And I said, and I kind of asked for a name, and I was given Ragnar because we like humans like names. They don't always have names, so we humans like names. And I said, will you draw a physical representation of yourself? And I got this image here. And then I went to the intuitives, several on the MeWe fairs, and we got the name and we got some backstory. But at first I said, who is this person? Who is this guide? And then one of the intuitives said, I see like a soldier from back in the old Roman times or Norway or somewhere in there with that helmet that comes down to here. So then I got off of after that, I said, hey, would you draw yourself, please? And this is the amazing drawing that I got. And I'm like, this is just cool. And then a couple weeks later, I said, because they give us, maybe some of them remember a human experience that they liked, and they're like, I'll show you that, because they're back in the spirit and they've been 1,000 things, but they'll show you, sometimes they'll show you, I don't know, maybe one of their favorite experiences, physical experiences. So later I said, well, hey, what do you look like elsewhere? Can you give me a different physical representation? And I got this being. And I think I asked, and I think this might be Zeta Reticuli. So that's how my head works. I get information, I ask questions. I get information, I ask questions. And then I have so much fun, and they have so much patience with me.
Great. Well, let me tell us just a little bit about your background in creativity, because I think that's informing part of why this gift is coming through you. And then tell us a bit about what's behind you and see what else we've forgotten that we need to talk about. I know we need to talk about your content info, but yeah, a little about your background and how did this start opening in you?
It's kind of funny how these things come together when your gifts come through and you're like, oh, that's why. Because so I'm technical by trade, and so I've got a very analytical mind, but I've always had the other part of my mind, which is just let's see what we get when we go down the rabbit hole. I'm like half Spock, I'm half fairy butterfly. And it's a good combination for trying new things and not getting surprised. Like when your hand starts moving on its own, you look at it and say, well, that's cool. What else you got? And that's why I think the guys have been so open with some of this stuff, because I just find it all fascinating. I'm like, sure, bring it on. This is fun. And but I've also been an artist most of my life, or I've been at least creative. And then I got more formally into art 2015, and I kind of focused on portraiture, which was kind of funny because a lot of what I'm drawing are beings that look human or non-human. So I'm using a lot of the art in bringing this forward, and I'm using my free spirit to let what comes through come through, and then I'm using the logic and technical side to follow rabbit holes to see what more can I do, what more can I be, how can I use this, and how can I learn. And then a long time ago, I also, I'd say a long time ago, a couple of years ago, somebody, before I was doing this kind of artwork, I asked, I'm like, the first thing I did was ask, will you paint for me? Will somebody paint for me? And I specifically asked Gregory, one of my guides, to paint, and he painted, we painted an amazing painting. So I also do spirit painting. This behind me is the bottom triptych is just an abstract piece of work, but everybody channels when they get into the zone, whether you're running or dancing or singing or creating. So this bottom one wasn't with any specific intention other than to create a beautiful balanced piece of work that is going into a business nearby who are some very dear people. And maybe I'll get a discount on the work, who knows. And the one above it is more specific. It was like, where am I spiritually now? Is that one, and it's not quite finished. Um, but again, I start these and then I work on them, and then I talk to intuitives and say, what do you see? You know, when you see this, and but yeah, that's a beautiful thing now, is being able to find some intuitives, many of them on with the MeWe Fair connections. Thank you so much for that. This is the most awesome space ever. Um, to be able to meet beautiful people, and a lot of them. So I've just been really surprised on how many people actually get something lovely from the light language, even if they don't know what's being said. But some of them are able to actually get very clear communication. So we do a give and take, you know, and I can talk, and they get to see beautiful things like the Arcturian High Council ship, and get to walk around and meet everybody in the Arcturian High Council. Tell me about it. And I just try not to be
Great.
envious that I can't see it.
So,
But
so
anyway.
people could come to you to attempt to connect with a certain being. They could want help with a specific thing. They might simply want whatever message comes through and not knowing even who it's going to be from. It might be get communication from their guides. It could be that they particularly want art in some form, although you don't know for certain if that's going to come through. So it's like some of the different things that people could do with you.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that, which I was kind of surprised when it happened, and it has happened twice now, so I'm comfortable in saying it, is there are some people that like have a new guide they're trying to connect with, but they might be having a little difficulty, and sometimes that, and I'm my understanding is there might be a disparity in the energetics, you know, like you're trying to pitch a half-inch pipe into an inch and a half pipe. And sometimes I can act as that intermediary to allow those energies to come together to allow you to integrate with this new being. So I've done that twice now, and that was pretty cool.
Great, great. All right. Well, I'm so excited to have you be part of the MeWe Fairs community. If people want to connect with you, where do they find you online?
So
Where will
not
you go?
online so much as, not quite all there yet, but right now it is singing salamander at gmail.com is the email, or Instagram at singing salamander.
Great. Okay, so two places where people can find you, and right, I've seen your gifts just expand and explode very quickly. So more and more, right, will be showing up online for people and be available for people. And I think this is your first video sharing all this stuff, right?
It is. And one thing I would ask as a favor, I know we're out of time, but could we end, when you're done, could we end on a little bit of singing for people?
Yeah, we totally can. So, and I'll say people can look at MeWeFairs.com if they want to find more about our events and all those different things. So go ahead, share a message, and I'll let the person know that I'm coming soon. What's next? Go ahead.
All right. Thank you all for coming, by the way. We want to express our care and our love through a little bit of light language through song. Janchimbande dundare nanane yotone. Donandane nundae nonae dundare. Tumbae onae tonata. Wane o ae nundae unanda. 도에 하나의 떠나다 가시게도 왔잖아 와해 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 We thank you, we greet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and all of you. Thank you
Mane
for hanging.
arate wache garade.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. All right, great. On to sharing more energy and more work with people.